to get up. And on the way up, we're going to bite a kneecap off, all right? And we're going to stand up, and then it's going to take 2 more shots to knock us down, all right? And on the way up, we're going to take your other kneecap, and we're going to get up, and then it's going to take 3 shots to get us down.
Happy draft week, Kneecaps faithful. We are here for our draft edition of Kneecaps for Breakfast. Vince Progar, that's me. Thrilled to be joined by Phil Byrne across the way. Phil, happy draft week to you.
Hey, happy draft week indeed, Vince. This is an awesome week, and I can't wait to get this one going. A lot of prep time has gone in for the city of Detroit, and they finally get to show it off. And I think this is finally the week that we can stop talking about the sign, the Detroit sign, and actually talk about the draft and how this is going to look downtown itself.
Absolutely. And anytime you get all eyes on one particular area, you always hope that the performance or the overall display was pulled together nicely. And by everything I've heard, the signs along the expressways notwithstanding, it seems like everything's coming together just fine. So I'm excited to see how that translates over a now made-for-TV event like the NFL Draft.
I mean, shout out to GMAC Cash, though. I mean, he's got a number of Lions songs. He's topical, man. Like he finds a way to get his name out there. So no shock that he got in on the sign.
Amen, brother.
News.
In any case, you're listening to Kneecaps for Breakfast. We are glad you could be along with us as we get our final thoughts in the mix here before the NFL Draft takes place on Thursday night, right here in the heart of the Motor City. We're going to kind of tread water in a different direction, though, to kind of get things started here in a segment we like to call First Bites. As we have touched on in previous episodes of Kneecaps for Breakfast, we knew that a uniform change was coming down the pike for the Detroit Lions, and the official unveiling was held at a special ceremony in Detroit this past Thursday night. Phil, you were on hand for that one, so you got to see the actual, we're not talking about the leakage that took place on social media or the WWW, but you got to see the actual unveiling Thursday night. The pictures have spread all over the internet since then, so the images of both the home jersey, the away jersey, and the alternate jersey are pretty well documented at this point. Phil, what were your first impressions upon seeing this new uniform setup for the Lions?
It was an impressive event, and it was disappointing to see the leak kind of come out. Rod Wood addressed that when during the event when he was interviewed by Danny Rogers on the stage. It does sound like it was a mistake and not anything that, the Lions jokingly did. I think there was the video of Jared Goff going like, oh, maybe I should just, leak this via tweet or something. I don't think the Lions had any plan in, trying to do it because it just didn't make a ton of sense. So obviously when that got leaked, the next question was, well, how is this going to look? What are the pants going to look like? What's the helmet kind of combo uniform look like as well? So there was still a little bit left to the imagination as far as how this was going to be unveiled. The event itself was pretty awesome. We can get into that a little bit, but yeah, basically 3 jerseys that are not the same, which is kind of an interesting take on it. Each jersey is a little bit different. So it's not like a standard blue, white, and black jersey that are basically the same.
Just a different
model.
Color variation.
Right. Each one has a little bit different kind of appeal to it. With the road jerseys, you have Detroit across the front of it. The Lions text is across the black jersey as well. First thing that I noticed, though, aside from the actual leak of the event, was I really, really, really love the home jerseys that we're going to be going with, and the updated helmet with the blue face mask. It is a lot of kind of like our version of what the San Francisco 49ers did when they updated their home look a little bit, or if you've ever seen kind of the Miami Dolphins throwback to it, where you basically have got those big, bold number types, basically one color. It's usually white with, like a trim on it, and then you've kind of got the side stripes, and the colors pop, the numbers pop. It is very, very appealing, and something that I think the team is going to look really, really good in. The road jerseys are kind of the I would say the closest to what we have had in the previous years, but they still have the updated numbers, which I think are just an overall improvement. And then the black jerseys, I think the big thing that pops with them is you've got the last name, in white, and then the numbers, in blue, and of course how that's going to look with the that alternate helmet, which I thought they were going to roll with the blue helmet that we had last year as
with
kind
the
of like an
racing
alternate.
lion and the
Yeah,
stripes.
yeah. I am a huge fan of that logo. We don't really have anything that I can see as of yet that is going to kind of reflect that, but the helmet itself is its own thing. Um, and as you can imagine, people wanted to buy that helmet after the event, when kind of the store opened up, which we can get into a little bit more. But first impressions, I think they knocked it out of the park. I think this is a 10 out of 10. There are no complaints from me. I am a fan of the home jersey, and kind of that look itself. So I'm very, very pleased with. I would assume that's the jersey that we will wear most often.
I really love the transition back to the color blue that they are readapting. The Honolulu blue, as it were, I think kind of ran its course a little bit. The fact that they're going back to a true blue is something that I really, really like. I like how they can now do their all blues still, like they have made a point of doing in years past. They're able to do the all whites as they have in years past, and they're able to incorporate some of those other color schemes. I like that a lot. I still need to actually see more of the black jerseys. And maybe that's a little bit of revisionist history on my part and thinking back to Kevin Smith and company and those black jerseys synonymous with so much losing over the years. I think that's something that I need to see them maybe rattle off a couple of wins in prime time for me to maybe jump fully on board with the blacks again. I will say the helmet that goes with those blacks that you touched on, Phil, is absolutely badass. That is gonna look sweet. No doubt about that. I think my only thing is that, as we touched on a moment ago, no incorporation of kind of the lions of yesteryear from like the racing lion and the stripes and whatnot. The fact that they pretty much entirely did away with the silver because silver is albeit a secondary, it's still a color of the Lions branding, whereas really black is nowhere to be seen. Black is kind of like that made for TV. Everybody puts their blacks on twice a year type of thing. That seems to kind of be the name of the game around the NFL. But I think silver is more synonymous with the Lions as far as what their ideal color scheme is, aside from the color black. I'm just splitting hairs at this point, though, Phil. I think they did do a nice job. I think they're, especially if they are indeed in their window and have plenty of winning football ahead of them, I think
Mm-hmm.
now is a great time to transition into this new uniform look. And I think they have an opportunity right in front of them here to really take this and make it all about winning a lot of football games. And to that end, that's how you make a jersey or a uniform scheme pretty timeless.
Yeah, absolutely. And the throwbacks that we've seen on the Thanksgiving games, I think there was a year where we didn't wear the traditional throwback, and it was kind of like the alternate jerseys were worn that game. We are going to also have those in the mix as well. So I think they are going to. It wasn't on display or anything like that because they wanted to show off the new uniforms.
So what I'm hearing you say, Phil,
Yeah.
is there's the potential for the Lions to wear as many as 4 different jersey
Yeah.
types over the course of the season. Okay, understood.
Yeah, so this event started and they did first roll out a video, not with a player modeling the jersey and having anyone come out, but it did mention that for, Thanksgiving, they were going to have the traditional throwback uniform. So that's the one that they've worn in the past, the the silver helmet, the very standard
The
jersey,
silver
which has been sold.
numbers,
Yeah,
no
yeah,
frills or thrills on the jersey
yeah,
itself, just a plain old jersey.
yeah,
Yep.
yeah. But for the event itself, very cool event to be on hand for. Three Lions legends were able to kind of showcase each jersey event that was showcased. You had Barry with the traditional home jersey with Sam Laporta. You had Chris Spielman with a Lee McNeil for the away jerseys. And then, of course, you had Calvin Johnson coming out with Kirby Joseph for the alternate jersey. So, again, once again, really cool seeing Calvin Johnson involved. And it hasn't really been reported on, but I got to imagine, especially because Rod Wood was one of the speakers at this event, that whatever again it was, kind of a monetary issue, that was at hand, it appears that Calvin is in a really good place, with the Lions at this point in time, if he's kind of still doing these sorts of events. So I would assume he's going to have his place in the Lions Ring of Honor here pretty soon within the event. But really cool videos, really cool display. They had this awesome Ford Mustang for the Lions uh, alternate jersey. Sheila Ford, Sheila Hamp was the one who kicked off the event, and of course she, was getting the Sheila chants and everything like that. And she lost her train of thought a couple times off the beginning because I think she was so overtaken with emotion that the Lions fans were embracing her and shouting her name. So
Far cry from a few years ago, let me tell you.
hey, what a turnaround, right? So that was really cool to see. Dan Campbell came out, to Metallica music, no less.
Of course.
So that was pretty awesome to see as well. Real first class event. Unique event because when the event was over with, if you were a Lions season ticket holder, you could buy the new jerseys, right? So my brother Chris and I, we attended the event. I ended up getting a blue Aiden Hutchinson jersey.
Solid choice.
Yeah, and it looks really sharp. But I think there were people that didn't actually sit down in their seats and just went straight to the Lions team shop and their little like mobile shop that was open in the atrium, and got in line because when we finally got over to where the jerseys were being sold, I know initially I actually wanted a Laporta jersey, and they were out in my size in blue. And then a bunch of the black jerseys were sold out as well, especially the Hutch jersey in black. So those will be hot commodities, I'm sure, in the Lions team store with whatever sort of code they've got. And I know a number of people bought them as soon as the event was over, and they're finally probably getting them through shipping, as we're listening to this podcast. But awesome first class event. Lions knocked out of the park, and I would attend it again if I could.
Out of curiosity, Phil, what is a NFL jersey going for nowadays at the team shop? It's been a minute since I've purchased a football jersey. The last couple that I've received, I've gotten as gifts and haven't actually set out on my own to purchase one. So what is the sticker on average for one of these?
So as part of the event, it was $10 to attend to get a seat. And then basically you would have Lions loot, as they called it, right? So you could roll it over into a discount on the actual jersey itself. The jersey had a sticker price of $150, but they were giving, or the jerseys were being sold on site for 120. So normally that is a high price for a jersey, and one that I think is inflation's real and all that kind of stuff. But not having to deal with all the shipping and additional costs that go into that, I thought it was pretty good. So I'm guessing that 150 reflects the price that would be game day going to the Lions team shop and buying the jerseys. The standard jerseys is $150 now. So it is not cheap, not cheap.
And especially, I know the NFL shop does their own little promotions over the course of the season where they do like their 30% off blitz or what have you. And that's when I've purchased a lot of my stuff in previous years. kind of look for when NFL Shop does a little something. And I don't really think that their prices are really at all marked up from what the going to the team shop, if you will, actually is. I think you're getting pretty much a comparable product that way. So maybe
Mm-hmm.
once all the hubbub dies down from all this, I'll be looking into expanding my Lions jersey repertoire here. I'll, like I said, maybe wait for things to kind of cool off a little bit. But in any case, it's going to be interesting once the NFL schedule is unveiled, probably around this time next month. It'll be kind of interesting to see what jerseys they decide to go with the corresponding games, especially as we figure out what their primetime schedule looks like and when some of the heavy hitters are coming to town. It'll be kind of cool to see how they kind of set up the different types of uniform combinations. I know last year the team had a lot of success wearing the all blues and the all whites. It's when they kind of mixed and matched a little bit record wise. They didn't do so hot in a lot of those games, but just gives us one more thing to look forward to heading into the season.
Yeah, absolutely. Sometimes it was timed up to where you would get it. I think it was actually the week before, on Thursday. But with the Lions and with some of these other teams, if they are rolling out a new jersey, it's a great time to kind of use that week before the draft to have the jersey release. Because of course the Jets did something as well. So I think the NFL has decided, hey, we can just hold off on it, until May. We don't need to rush it necessarily. So um, I think we have a game in Brazil that's been announced for week 1 with the Eagles, and I can't remember who the other team is in that game. So I think that's the only game that we know of so far.
I do remember hearing something that the Eagles are not going to be able to wear their home colored green uniforms for that game because of the significance that that color green has with the Brazil area. I'm not exactly sure what that stigma is. I haven't done any
Hmm.
research on it, but it sounds like, which the Eagles tend to wear their whites at home the first few weeks out of the season anyway, but it looks like
Mm-hmm.
that's going to be what they're going to be required by the people of Brazil to wear in an effort to not pay any type of homage to that color green based on its significance to the region. Who knew?
Who knew? Yeah, that's an interesting one.
You're listening to this episode of Kneecaps for Breakfast. Vince Progar, Phil Byrne along with you. So now we're going to get into the meat and potatoes of what this episode is all about. That is the NFL draft. The Lions, as it stands, are set to pick at 29th overall in the first round. So, what does that translate to as far as you, the fans, you, the podcast listeners that may feel like either A, heading downtown Detroit for the draft itself or just staying up late and watching it on TV? That means there's a very real possibility they're not even making a prediction until sometime in the 11 o'clock hour if they stand pat at 29. But what I want to do with you, Phil, before we start really breaking things down with the draft, let's kind of hone in on the Lions themselves and make our official predictions because this is our last episode before the draft actually takes place. Let's make our official predictions what the Lions are going to do with their pick. Are they going to hold steady at 29? Are they going to trade up for a guy they like? Or are they thinking that they have a pretty good handle on things and may be able to make a shrewd move by trading down and acquiring some more draft capital to be used at a point of their choosing, whether it be now or whether it be at the trade deadline or something like that, trading out of the first round altogether? Phil, what do you think?
Yeah, so two scenarios that I put together. I think it's pretty obvious where the Lions' biggest needs are. I think it's at cornerback and I think it's at defensive end. And I don't think it's a case of reaching for either spot for the two players that I'm kind of targeting for what the Lions are going to do here. If they stay at pick 29, um, I would like the pick if he is there to be Cooper DeJean. I think he fits a lot of what they want from that position. He can play outside. I don't think he's a case of his size is going to limit him to not being able to play on the outside. He has some return game versatility. He is a tremendous athlete, and I think he is 100% about what Dan Campbell is all about and what Aaron Glenn wants on the defensive side of the ball. I don't think the Lions are going to be trading up into the top 15 or the top 10 or anything like that. So I would say if they are going to trade up, I think it's only going to be up to like pick 24, pick 25, like 5 spots, if that. And I think if they are going to trade up, I think it would be for Chop Robinson from Penn State. I think his edge rushing skill set is something that they would want to have opposite Hutch, and something that he would basically become, you know, a 3 down type of pass rusher that you can have in there and just kind of wreak havoc. Especially with some of the free agent acquisitions the Lions have made this offseason. I don't think there'd be a ton of pressure on him. I think he is one that I don't think would still be there at pick 29. I think he would go before that pick. So I don't think they're going to trade up to like pick 20 to go get him. But I think if he's still there at, say, pick 24, pick 25, I think it could be a case of, maybe the Lions throw in like, a 3rd round pick or something like that to move up a couple spots.
The more I think about it, the more I support the idea of moving up to get a guy. And I feel like this is a unique position for the Lions in that they have a pretty clear cut sense of what they need. Like you touched on, Phil, they need help at corner and they need help on the edge. And I think everything else is in a position where you're pretty comfortable with. So you have an opportunity here where you're in your window and draft picks in a vacuum really aren't as important because you're not in the middle of a rebuild. You're not at the start of a rebuild. I'm not saying go all F them picks like the LA Rams of yesteryear, but I think there's got to be a happy medium there. So I think I may go a little further than you, Phil, instead of maybe keeping it to, 22, 23, something like that. I would be okay with them even trading up to 13, 14, 15 if a guy you've got a really good grade on is still there. So let's say Terrion Arnold is still on your board and you have an opportunity to go get him at 14. I think that's something that you do if you want to get a real good lockdown corner out of Alabama. I think if Jared Verse, the edge rusher from Florida State, is still there at 17, I say you go up there and get him. I don't want the Lions to start thinking, okay, this guy will probably not be there. That guy will probably not be there. We've got our 1, 2, 3, 4 on this position. We got our 1, 2, 3, 4 on that position. At the end of the day, we'll be okay with our number 3 or our number 4 guys at that position, and we'll just let the cards fall where they may. I think if you have an opportunity to go and get your guy that you've got the highest grade on, and we know full well that's what Brad Holmes does. He has his best available at every position. Forget what Mel or any of those talking heads on the TV network say. He has his own draft board, and even though people may not hold in the highest regard of what Brad thinks and why he does what he does and why he makes the moves that he does, I think if he has the ability to go up and get a guy he really wants, and it's in that middle part of the first round, I say absolutely go do that and don't sacrifice, hey, we'll get, maybe that number 3 ranked guy at that position just for the sake of holding steady at 29, or to hope that if you trade down into the second round that maybe your guy's still there.
Yeah, no, I like that. I think that there is a window that the Lions have here, but that window, while they continue to build, gets narrower the better the other teams in the division get. And you've already got some people believing that Green Bay is right there. Chicago could be there. And Minnesota, we'll have to see what they do with the quarterback pick, but they're building,
and that's a huge variable.
Building a pretty credible offense, So who knows what they've got on their defense, but so that's at least going to make things challenging inside the NFC North at least.
So my question to you then, Phil, is what is the exact pick? So we kind of took a broad-faced view of what they're going to do. What is their pick going to be with their first round?
So this is going to be if we are just staying at 29 and kind of seeing as
that could be any scenario that you think, whatever scenario that you think they're going to do in that first round. What are they going to do, and who are they going to take?
Yeah, so I think they will stay at pick 29, and I think they're going to get a guy that's going to get immediate value and the capability to start right away. And like I just said a couple of minutes ago, I think that is going to be Cooper DeJean. I think he has a couple of traits that will allow him to fall down the draft a little bit. I think this is going to be a very offensive heavy first round. First 7 picks look like they could all be offense. You always have a lot of offensive tackles and wide receivers going, in the mid part of the draft. So what does that mean? That means that Cooper DeJean will probably be the third, the fourth cornerback taken in the first round, but that is not a slight on him. It is a deep position. Um, I think it's just kind of the way that this draft is going to fall. You got the two guys from Alabama, Terrion Arnold and Kool-Aid McKinstry. You've got Quinyon Mitchell from Toledo in there. There's a Clemson cornerback. His name's escaping me. He could go somewhere in there. But I think Cooper DeJean just has some really, really special traits. And I think he's a guy that just from a physicality standpoint could bring quite a bit. I really, really like him. And I hope if we do pick at 29 and he's there, I think he's a no-brainer.
I think the Lions have their guy of who they want to get in the first round, but I do believe they are going to have to trade up to get him. I keep seeing more and more about this Darius Robinson kid out of Mizzou, and the more I read up on the guy, the more film I watch on the guy, the more I think he'd look good in a Lions jersey. I'm just not sold that he's going to be available at 29. I did actually see a 7-round mock draft that the NFL put together that shows him actually falling to the Lions at 29. I just don't, in my level of common sense, think that's a possibility. I think he's going to be gone before that. I think he's a guy who is what the Lions are all about. He's a guy that would absolutely love to be a member of this organization, and he fills a hardcore point of need on that defensive line. I think that the Lions trade up to number 20 overall in order to get their guy, Darius Robinson, out of Mizzou. That's going to be what the Lions do in the first round.
Interesting. Yeah, no, I do like him, and he's, I think a guy that has been rumored, I don't think it really has everything to do with just being from the area and being, a fan of the team, but his work ethic, what he brought to the Missouri defense as a whole, seemed to really get a good buzz off of his kind of play. I think he can be a difference maker. I think the thing with him that's so interesting is he's a lot of kind of in the mold of what we had with Josh Paschal, but I think he's better. Like I don't think he's that
without the clear injury
yeah
background that Pascal had coming
yeah
into the Lions.
yeah. So yeah, no, he'd be an immediate starter as well on the defensive end.
What's something that the Lions would do in the first round that would absolutely surprise you? It can be either a good surprise or a not so good surprise.
If like Bo Nix was there on the board at 29, you pick Bo Nix, like that just I wouldn't get it. I really wouldn't.
So let's expand upon that then, Phil.
Yeah.
If let's say you got Bo Nix or you've got Michael Penix or somebody like that sitting there at 29, you've held pat all along, and you have at least one quarterback just sitting there at 29, and you still don't fully know what you're going to do with Goff because there hasn't been an extension yet. You don't know what the future holds. So let's say you sign Goff to maybe a 2-year deal worth a boatload of money, but there is really no commitment beyond that. Do you even entertain that possibility?
No, because I think Hendon Hooker has a lot of similar traits that Nix and Michael Penix have. And
I
you
mean,
just got
Penix
him.
and Knicks have both of their knees fully intact at the moment.
They do. They do. They do.
Although I'm really splitting hairs when it comes to the injury past of Michael Penix versus the injury past of Hendon Hooker. I think we're at about
but
a wash there.
so the only real plus that you would get if both of those guys were still there is that at pick 29, some team is going to want to trade back into the first round. That is going to want a quarterback. So that would be a scenario where maybe you can load up on a couple different second round picks or something like that, or some future second rounds picks or something. If for whatever reason, all the defensive guys that you like just aren't there. It's maybe a little too rich for, some of the interior offensive linemen that, have been rumored to be, kind of in the Lions' name. You don't want to get a receiver and you just decide to kind of punt it, and trade down back into the second round for, the Raiders, the Broncos, the Vikings. Well, I would think the Vikings already have their guy at that point, but you get the exercise that would be the only net benefit. But if you stayed there at 29, you picked Bo Nix or something like that, that would be the ultimate head scratcher, I couldn't really wrap my head around it. Even running back, I think, wouldn't make a ton of sense. I think quarterback would actually make more than running back. I think we're pretty good on running back. I don't think there's a running back worth a first round pick. In this draft.
I couldn't even tell you who the
begin with.
top 5 ranked running backs are in this draft. And I think a lot of it
No.
goes to the fact that the running back isn't as frequently used as it once was. I don't want to say it's going by the way of the VCR or anything like that, but
Yeah.
you're not seeing the same amount of value, especially in the first round, especially because a lot of the times you're drafting a running back, and this is why Brad Holmes took a lot of flack from Lions fans a year ago, that 9 times out of 10, these guys, as they're getting drafted, aren't going to be around for that second contract. So you're basically using first-round draft capital on a guy you're going to have for 5 years and then sayonara. So I think the measure of taking a running back, like you said, is probably going to be the most eye-opening. Just for the heck of it, Phil, at what point do the Lions really start to investigate a kicker? Is this something that you use any type of draft capital on in the later goings of the draft, or is this something that you keep trying to pound the pavement in free agency? Because it just seems to me that you can ride the Riley Patterson and the Michael Badgley bus until you're black and blue in the face, but it just seems like there's a hesitancy of this organization to really commit to a kicker long term. I'm not so sure that they're even in a situation where they even like either of those guys, as aggressive as Dan Campbell is on his fourth downs. A lot of it probably comes down to he just doesn't trust his kicker in a big spot. So what do the Lions do? Is this something you draft a kicker or try and acquire one by some other means?
Well, first of all, I haven't heard about him in a while. So, what's the deal with the UFL kicker? That's already in the building, basically. The kid from Arkansas, like he was nailing those 60+ yarders inside the dome already. So, I think they need to at least bring him in for a workout and kind of go from there to see if, hey, maybe they had a gem that was just unearthed to them, through this other league. I do not want a kicker with like a third or fourth round pick. I think they're at a point where let's use all the assets that we have, at least in the first 5 rounds, on guys that can either contribute or build depth to, or if we lose guys in free agency, you've got some guys that can eventually play a little bit. I like our depth, and I think we have one of the deepest rosters at this point, but I just don't think investing in a kicker that high is what this is going to be. So honestly, I would see what this kid in the UFF and the UFL has to offer and kind of go from there. I think there will be some kickers that will be available come training camp time that you can also kind of bring in to explore a little bit. I would like to have a little bit more solid ground, some solid footing, if you will, to
I see what you did there.
To kind of get the kicker spot solidified, though, because I don't like who's going to be the starting kicker this week. I don't like playing that game. I think
And that's why I asked the question. I mean, because that's something that the Lions have whistled by the graveyard with ever since Matt Prater left town a couple years back. It just seems to be kind of a platoon or by committee or who we feel gives us the best chance to make a big kick in a big spot this week. It's something that your luck's going to run out at some point. And you're going to get burned when you least expect it.
Yep. Absolutely.
So if you mean to tell me you got Will Riker from Alabama, who is the all-time leading scorer in Crimson Tide history, sitting there at pick 129th in the 4th round, do you just let somebody else take him, or do you take a flyer on the kid?
Well, I think 4th round is where you would start to entertain it. I
because
really
the
do.
49ers took Moody in the third round, and that kind of raised a few eyebrows, and you know why they made the pick, but it seems like that's kind of at the point where it's like, hey, it's do or die if you don't want to go down like the UFL route or the Kickalicious route or anything like that. Something to think about.
Yeah. Find hey, we found this guy in Sweden that he I don't even know. I don't know where I'm going with that. Killing the podcast here. Let's keep moving on.
You're listening to this episode of Kneecaps for Breakfast. Vince Progard, that's me. Phil Burton, that's him. Thrilled you could be along with us. We're so glad you're able to be tuning in week after week in this venture of ours, whether it be subscribing, tuning in week in and week out. We really appreciate the love and support with that. We've been talking about the NFL draft all episode long. That's going to be held in Detroit Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. Definitely like how they've kind of made it more of a made-for-TV event instead of something that you put on Saturday afternoon. It runs all day Saturday, then it runs all day Sunday, and it's just kind of a situation where they don't really put it in a position to where you can really settle in and watch it for an extended period of time. Now they have the whole first round taking place on a Thursday. They got rounds 2 and 3 Friday in prime time, and then these subsequent rounds all take place over the course of the day on Saturday. But I like this format a lot myself. Phil, what are your thoughts ever since they kind of switched the formats a little bit from just a weekend only thing to now taking over the course of 3 days, 2 of which in prime time? How do you like that format as opposed to the old way?
I do like it. Obviously they wanted the primetime TV windows during the week, which they get with this. And I can't remember what year it was, some million year, I think. And this was back when the draft started at like noon on Saturday.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it was 7:30 before the first round was over. And that is exhausting. And teams had way too much time to kind of just dilly daddle when they probably knew who they were picking, but they used the
Because
full
it was every
extent of
bit
the
of
clock.
15 minutes or something, wasn't it? At
Yeah,
least.
yeah. It was 15 minutes. But then, you'd always have the number one pick. Team already knew who they were getting, but they wanted to take the 15 minutes to brag about the guy or have their minute in the spotlight. And it just became an all day exercise. So they've made it a lot more TV friendly. They've made it a lot more, really tolerable to watch as a viewing event. I mean, if the first round was all day Saturday, you'd have people just bored out of their minds, in campus marshes this weekend, around 5 o'clock, and the Lions
People don't have the attention spans for that anymore.
No, they really don't. So they made some good changes with this.
So what I want to get into now is zero in on some guys who we are most excited to see make that jump from the college game to the pro game. Some guys that we're going to be keeping our eyes on, regardless of who they get drafted, where they get drafted. Guys that we've kind of followed over the course of their college career or have heard or seen a lot of good stuff this past offseason in draft previews or what have you. Guys are going to be paying particular attention to at the next level. Phil, I'll start with you. Throw out about, maybe 3 guys who you've really honed in on this offseason and are excited to see at the next level.
Okay. So basically the way that I've done this is I'm not saying like this is the top guy I want to see. This is the next guy I want to see.
In no particular order.
Yeah. What I did was I have one guy that is slated to be like a top 10 pick, kind of like an obvious slam dunk. I kind of want to see how this guy is going to go. And then some guys that are going to be probably late first, early second, kind of later on like that I don't think you would like necessarily call them like a sleeper, if that's kind of still a term that's out there, but some guys that are off the radar a little bit more. The top guy that I want to see, he's not going to be the top pick. He might not even be the second pick with the way that this is going, but I like his comparables. I like his size, and I think he has enough upside, and that is Drake May, where he has some traits and intangibles that reminds people of a little bit of like a Justin Herbert and Josh Allen kind of mix. And if I am making prototypical quarterbacks in this year of 2024, Justin Herbert and Josh Allen are two of the guys that I want to kind of mold my quarterback in the model of. They both play with teams that have some serious flaws, which is kind of why they can't get over the top. But from a physical standpoint, how they play the game, their competitive nature, I think they have that there. Drake May, I think some of the flaws that he had was, I think it was a very easy offense to pick up. And I think that's going to be one of his biggest challenges moving forward. But from a physicality standpoint, he absolutely has everything that you're looking for. He has a cannon of an arm. He can run. He's got the size that maybe some of the other guys don't quite have. And it's kind of one of those cases that maybe he doesn't go number 2 to Washington. Okay, maybe it is Jaden Daniels. The Patriots are a little bit of a mess. But as much as I would hate to see this as a Lions fan, maybe he does end up in Minnesota and he gets a guy like Justin Jefferson. And all of a sudden, sometimes when you are a quarterback just getting into the right situation and scenario with the right talent around you, you're set. And that's all you really need. So I would say if he gets to the Vikings, that is a somewhat scary situation that I'd be looking for, because I think he checks all the boxes, even though I can see why he isn't going to be the number 1 overall pick and the top quarterback. The two other guys that I've got on my list here, receiver Ricky Pearsall out of Florida. Yes, I did cover Florida back in the day. This is no bias of that. I think a receiver that came out of nowhere last year was Puka Nacua, that he has this, maybe not the actual like physical skill sets that you're looking for, but the separation, the catching ability, the route running, the durability, all of those intangibles and those assets are what Ricky Pearsall has. He isn't going to be a 5th round pick. I think he's kind of charting to be like a 2nd round pick. He is a dynamic weapon that I think, again, if he goes into the right spot, you wouldn't want him to be your number 1 receiver right away, but he is going to be like Puka, where he's going to come in as like the number 2 receiver. And probably by the end of the year, he will be your top receiver on whatever team he goes to. I think he has that kind of competitive nature in him. Third guy I like, he's been compared to a guy on the Lions, Frank Ragnow, and that's Jackson Powers Johnson. He is a bigger center, can play a little bit of guard. Maybe, a couple moves go a little bit differently in free agency. Maybe he would be the absolute slam dunk of a pick at pick 29.
And isn't he related to somebody? Is he like related to one of the Sewells or something like that? Maybe a cousin? I want to say I heard that somewhere.
I don't know. I mean, he did play at Oregon, so that wouldn't be super, super shocking. But he is a bigger center. I mean, he's about 6'5". He can play center and guard. He's very, very versatile. What he offers, though, in the run game is why you want this guy. He is absolutely punishing, but a good enough athlete to, kind of keep going up to the next level and get into the secondary if need be. So I think he's going to be a Pro Bowl type interior offensive lineman, within like 2 years, basically.
Those are some great names, and I echo all of those. It's going to be interesting to see how they translate their game into the NFL. I've got 3 guys myself, and they may be a little bit more in the way of low-hanging fruit, but they all are worthy of keeping tabs on just the same. Caleb Williams is going to be my number 1 guy. Again, this is in no particular order, but he's the number 1 overall pick. He's been the presumptive number 1 overall pick for multiple seasons. This date coming up on Thursday has been circled on a lot of people close to Caleb Williams' calendar for a long time. And it's no secret what he brings to the table in terms of what his physical abilities are, his ability to make throws, his mobility. There's no question he can do a lot with the football, without the football. He really is what makes the offense go. However, and I've touched on it in previous podcast episodes, I have a lot of questions as to what he was able to do in college in a quarterback-friendly offense that Lincoln Riley headed up for all those years, both at Oklahoma and at Southern Cal. Is an offense in the NFL led by Shane Waldron, a guy who doesn't really strike the fear of God into opposing defenses necessarily. And the Chicago Bears, even though it's clear with the moves that they're making, the moves that they have made recently, are on a trajectory in an upward direction. But they're still a work in progress. You're not putting Caleb Williams in a finished product by any means. So, what are the growing pains going to look like? What is his presence there? How is that going to make an impact on what the Bears do this next season and what they do over the next several seasons moving forward? Let's not forget the Bears have been able to get it right at quarterback for a long time, regardless of who they've brought in, regardless of who on paper looks like that would be a great fit. It just hasn't worked out that way for a long time. And I'm not going out right here and doing the whole hot take radio of, oh, hey, he's going to be a bust. I'm not going that far. I'm just asking the question of, is it going to be as seamless of a transition to the NFL, to this Bears offense, as people seem to think? That's something I'm going to be keeping a close eye on. The next guy that has my attention moving towards the NFL is Brock Bowers, the tight end out of Georgia. Same thing. He's been out on a lot of draft radars ever since the 2021 campaign. Huge threat in the offense down there at Georgia. Struggled with a little bit of injury down the stretch this past year. Went through that tightrope procedure to take care of that ankle injury that he had. I think that might have spooked a few people this past offseason because he's been all over the place on mock drafts ever since the end of last season. I've seen him projected as being a top 5 pick. I've seen him even falling out of the first round completely and everything in between. I am most curious to see how Bowers is going to be used in the NFL. And what I mean by that is he going to be used as a traditional tight end? Is he going to be like a Gronkowski or a Sam Laporta or a TJ Hawkinson type? Or is he a guy that you can experiment and split him wide and really not use him as much of a tight end per se at all? And I think he has the abilities to play in any type of position like that. And I think that's what makes him so alluring as a draft pick, knowing that you can use this guy in so many different ways, knowing that he has the ability to be able to go wide, whether it can be bunched tight to the formation. It's going to be interesting to see how that plays out. And it's also going to be interesting to see who takes him and what their quarterback situation looks like and how easy it's going to be for the quarterback of the team that drafts him. How easily are they going to be able to get on the same page in order to really be a formidable duo? Or is it going to be kind of a situation that the Atlanta Falcons kind of were in these past couple of years with the platoon under center of Desmond Ridder and Taylor Heineke? You got all these offensive weapons, and it just seemed like there was no cohesion. Nobody knew how to use any of those pieces in tandem with one another. It just seemed like a big mess. So will Bowers be used to his full potential based on the scheme, based on the quarterback, based on the offensive weapons that are around him? Or is it going to be a situation where we had to take the guy because he was the best player available, but is he a great fit? I'm curious to see if he lives up to his billing there. And then lastly, I'm kind of taking a more widely encompassing approach on this. It's no secret for the people who know me, that includes you, Phil, as well. I'm no fan of the University of Michigan Wolverines. I've always been a Michigan State guy my whole life. And it was even this past season having to watch my team look like hot garbage week in and week out. You got Michigan going and winning the whole kit and caboodle this year. I'm not going to get into any of the off the field hoopla that the Wolverines may or may not have partaken in over the past couple of years. They went out and won the national championship last year. Kudos to them. They got it done. It was one of those situations where, you know what? My wife is a huge fan of the University of Michigan. So what did I do once the game was in the bag? I did, in my mind, the wise thing. I got up and went on up to bed and let her bask in the moment on her own, because I didn't trust myself to not be making snide comments or otherwise ruining the moment. So the best thing to do, Phil, is if you don't have anything good to say, don't say anything at all, and better yet, remove yourself from the situation completely. So she got to
Smart
enjoy
man.
her moment. I got to not be a part of it. And it was almost a situation where that was like a reset for me, in that, like, anytime you go into a situation with fear or trepidation or something, you ask yourself, what's the worst that can happen? And moving forward, it's like, okay, the worst thing that could have happened to me already happened. I watched the other team win the whole thing while my team was playing like absolute crap for the last couple of years. So it's almost like, okay, that kind of reset the whole time space continuum here. So I have now, over the course of this last offseason, kind of been intrigued and interested by a lot of these kids out of the University of Michigan who are going to be in the draft and look to play at the next level. And I'm excited to see what they all do. Obviously, Phil, you and I have talked a lot about J.J. McCarthy over the last several podcast episodes. It's no secret that he's going to be a highly sought-after commodity, probably in the top 5, depending on who goes up to get the kid. I think there's no question that he's going to be making waves in definitely in the top 10 of this draft.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Beyond that, pretty clear that Blake Corum is going to find a way to wind up with Jim Harbaugh with the Chargers. That seems like that's just a made-for-TV pairing that I would be stunned if there wasn't a way that the Chargers were able to go, especially with their running back situation in flux. It wouldn't surprise me at all to see him wind up with the Chargers organization. At what round, I'm not sure, but we'll just have to see. And then beyond that, you got kids like Mikey Sainristil. Is he going to be a first-round corner? I know my wife would love it if he'd be a first-round corner. She'd definitely love it if he wound up with the Lions at 29. Where's he going to wind up? What kind of impact is he going to make? Same thing with Chris Jenkins. How's he going to do? I'm seeing him mocked to the second round as a defensive lineman. What kind of impact is he going to make next year? What about Zach Zinter coming off that big injury? Who's going to take a chance on him? I saw Fox Sports run a article a couple of days ago, and they posed the question, could Michigan break the all-time record set by Georgia a couple of years ago for the most players from one single class be taken over the course of a singular draft? And there is a pathway to that actually happening. I think it's, albeit a very, very far-fetched path, in that you need to get guys like a Carson Barnhart or somebody like that getting drafted on top of everybody else. I think they might fall a little bit short of that, but it's
day
worth
3
keeping.
Chargers picks, baby.
Yeah, I mean,
Harbaugh's gonna make it happen.
It wouldn't surprise me, though, just on paper, though, Phil, if a lot of these kids from Michigan do wind up. It's almost like you got the Los Angeles Inglewood Chargers turned into Ann Arbor West. I don't know how they, if they're going to do that, if they're going to make a run at it, but part of me is just intrigued by what these U of M kids are going to do at the next level, because you saw so much galvanization amongst that team, whether it be from the outside or whether it be from the inside. And it seemed like they almost held the Bill Belichick moniker of do your job. Everybody knew what their job was, and everybody did their job almost to perfection with everything else that was going on around them. They knew what their job was. They honed in there for 60 minutes, week in and week out, and they got it done. So my question is, if you don't have that same level of stability within your franchise or the guys that are surrounding you, what are these guys going to look like at the next level?
Yeah, Junior Colson's another guy. Blake Corum seems like a guy that, you're right, you can just see him, ESPN bringing up the webcam video at his draft party. He's on the phone and it's Harbaugh on the other line. That seems like something that's willing to happen. But yeah, no, Michigan, I mean, there's a reason they won it all, and it is that kind of depth. Roman Wilson's another guy that's going to get drafted along the way at some point. But, I joked about it, but couldn't you just see Harbaugh in like the 7th round, or some of these comp picks that are so far off he just drafting, like, I can't think of a name off the top of my head, but some guy that was
Barnhart. We've already used him.
That was like a backup, or someone like that. It's like, we just like the guy, fourth string defensive tackle, that was like a redshirt senior or something like that.
I mean, could happen. Could happen. I've seen weirder things happen over the course of a draft.
Yeah.
Now, Phil, final thoughts as we wind things down with our draft discussion. We've been at this for several episodes worth, so a lot of draft content on Kneecaps for Breakfast these last few weeks. You can take it any way you want, whether it be Lions specific or whether it be NFL specific. Final thoughts on the draft before we sit back and watch it unfold before our eyes.
Yeah, I'll just say this for Detroit, let's embrace this opportunity to kind of have this event. We don't, who knows what the deal is with like the NBA All-Star game ever coming here. The Super Bowl, it seems like it's basically just going to be for whenever a new stadium gets built. We had it with the Silverdome, we had it with Ford Field. We're not really going to have it anytime soon. The Super Bowl, for all intents and purposes, when it was in 2006, or I think it was 2006, it was a success. Um, I think this is going to be really interesting. A lot of people coming from out of town for this. What are going to be their takeaways? I think some of the takeaways they're going to see is that it is a really walkable downtown, especially like where this event is going to be. We do have lots of restaurants and bars and things to do. I don't know how the weather is going to cooperate. Kind of looks like high 40s, low 50s for the first couple of days, and then a little bit warmer on Saturdays. So, that could be one of the takeaways. It's a little chilly out there. Public transportation, not great downtown.
What about the Q line?
The Q line. Yeah. Yeah. Hey, let's get some rapid transit from Ferndale, Royal Oak to downtown and actually like get it to where you can park in Royal Oak or Ferndale and, take something in downtown instead of having to pay $65 game day in the district of Detroit, for a parking garage. That's a whole nother rant for another time. This isn't a city council meeting. Okay. I think this is a really great opportunity. So basically what I'm just asking is just like, I really just hope that people embrace that this is here and know, at least from firsthand, from seeing the draft when it was in New York and being a part of it, knowing that there is going to be some crap talking from other team and people. Let's not have this escalate into any like fist fights or altercations. Everyone's here to just have a good time. And
yeah, we don't want anybody to get hurt, even though there's plenty of hospitals within short distance of Hart Plaza. A few people that get hurt on Thursday or over the course of the weekend as a whole, the better.
Yeah, exactly. So there's going to be people from all over. Obviously with Chicago having those picks and having the close proximity, I would assume there's going to be a ton of Bears fans coming in. But any other team that is relatively close that has a bunch of picks, they'll probably be coming in as well. So it is a great opportunity for Detroit to prove that it is, really. I don't even know the best way to describe it, but just a nice downtown for what it is at this point. So let's take this opportunity and take advantage of it.
And I'm going to look at the Lions from a personnel standpoint of what I'm interested to see from this draft. I think they have an opportunity because they are, in my mind, in their window, and I want to see them draft guys rounds 1 through 7. I want to see difference makers, guys who the Lions have studied hard on and know that at some point they're able to step in and make an impact upon this franchise. I know that the situation always exists. You see a guy taken in the 5th round, some offensive lineman from Lord knows where, and you're like, who? Never heard of the guy. Well, if the guy is able to come in and provide legitimate depth at some point in this roster, whether they're on the practice squad that's able to kind of bounce back and forth between the practice squad and the active roster as needed, I want to see guys, again, rounds 1 through 7, that have the ability to step in and make a difference for this franchise. You never want to see guys that you draft and they don't even make camp or make it out of camp, and then it's almost giving you the feeling of like, what did we draft these guys for in the first place? The more guys they're able to take that can be difference makers for this franchise right away, the better. Because, again, I believe we are in our window now, and I still think we need plenty of help to get to where we need to go. And this draft is going to, in my mind, play a key role in helping us get to where we want to go.
Good point. I really think you absolutely nail it with that, because this is still uncharted territory. and we have such an opportunity to create something that we're going to remember for the rest of our lives if we get there and we can accomplish what we can. And we can tell children and next generation that, hey, we saw it through the 2008 season to where we are now. So
Like that full circle moment.
yeah, exactly.
So we're going to wrap things up here with a story. And we've touched on it even from like the first or second episode when we started doing this back in January. I can't fully remember what the context was, but Phil, about 15 years ago, almost to the day, you and I and about three or four other guys, the exact number kind of escapes me just at the top of my head right now, but we all loaded into the back of your dad's 2000 something Chevy Trailblazer, and we just
Extended series.
headed east
Yeah.
in anticipation of the 2009 NFL draft, where the Lions held the number one overall pick, the draft that the Lions would go on to draft Matthew Stafford, and he would be our quarterback for the next, 12, 13 years after that. And Phil, I'll kind of let you drive the bus on this here, kind of rehash to our loyal listeners who have hung on for a little bit longer of an episode than usual. We'll kind of treat them to a little story time here. Phil, what do you remember about the trip out to the NFL draft 15 years ago?
So it was my second time in New York. I went a couple years prior when I was still in high school. But in that situation, I flew. So this was the first time I had drove. This was basically our spring break. We were headed to the East Coast, and we had some guys in there I didn't really know that well, but kind of just had mutual friends. And I just remember one of the guys had a family member or a cousin or someone like that lived like off of Wall Street or
Or like or a friend of a friend of a friend type of thing.
I don't even know where in New York we were at some point. It's just such a massive city, and we had free lodging basically. Which
Was
if you've ever
huge.
been to New York, yeah, like it's at least I'd say bare minimum probably $300 a night. Especially like during the draft and things. But
the idea was for us to take a park in New Jersey and
yeah,
take a train into the city
yeah,
like normal people would do at that point, because there is
yeah,
literally no place to park in New York City. And then you're stuck on the bridges heading into the city for could be hours at that point. So that was our original plan. And then we get to the train station, and as I recall, weren't they like shut down for operation? And even at like 5:30 on a Friday, the place was just straight up deserted.
yeah. So I remember I looked into this online and it looked like it was going to work. Where basically we were going to park the vehicle in like a commuter lot in New Jersey and take the train in. And my thought was, well, I don't want to pay for parking for 3 or 4 days in a huge parking garage somewhere in New York and then be blocks and miles away from the vehicle. Like that just didn't seem like a great situation. So, it was like a secure parking lot you were going into in New Jersey and stuff like that. And basically, yeah, there was no service from the train like when we got there. And I don't really remember if there was a parking spot or whatever. So, first impression of New Jersey, not great. Not great. So, anyways, we decided to just keep driving. I remember going into the Lincoln Tunnel. We saw some Lions fans that stopped us because they saw the Michigan plate, we didn't have
Could
like a
not
Lions.
make out what they were yelling out the window at us.
Yeah, yeah. It just the most bizarre situation there. But anyways, we got across. We found a parking garage. We put the vehicle in. But then this is where we were in 2009 as a country. Now we've got this awesome layout of, oh, hey, register online for your bracelet to go to the draft and, do this, that, or the other thing. I had been emailing the Lions PR department about like, hey, we're really curious about going to see this. How do we do this? And they're like, not really sure.
You'll just have to get there and find out for yourself. And hey, if you think about it, let us know what's going on down there.
So it's Friday night. Friday night. No, sorry. And basically we had to go find the Rock or not Rockefeller, what is
30
it?
Rock.
Not 30 Rock, but where is
Oh,
the
Radio City.
Radio City.
Yep.
We had to go find Radio City, and they had a whole bunch of things going on Friday night. And I remember just kind of overhearing that, like, oh yeah, no, if you want to go to the draft, you got to get in line. They're going to give you a bracelet like on site, and then you return next day. So the other weird thing is that's Friday night. They put this bracelet on your wrist. Basically, we had to have this bracelet on for 24 hours. I mean, you're taking a shower and things like that.
Because if you did not have that bracelet, you were not getting in the next day.
You were not getting in the next day. So we wanted to make sure that we had those. We got them. And day of, Vince, I just remember you were wearing that Oklahoma State Barry Sanders jersey.
And I think you had your Stephen Boyd jersey on. Was that right?
No, I had my Ernie Sims jersey.
Oh, that's right. The black one. Yep, the black.
Man, 50. That thing. I think I got rid of that immediately after the draft when I got a Stafford jersey. So, but what a unique situation though, in circumstance, just with like getting there, where we were as a country in 2009, as far as like coordinating these things.
Well, and not to mention the big thing that was going on at the exact time of our trip out there was the H1N1 swine flu. And the ironic thing about that is people were thinking that the H1N1 was going to wind up being the same exact type of pandemic that COVID actually wound up being all those years later. Never really formulated into that, but you could tell that there was a lot of rumblings about what are we going to do with this new virus that's sweeping the New York area. Yeah.
But what a cool situation it ended up being. I think we were on the third level of the theater once we got inside. We were within a couple of feet from Roger Goodell before the event.
Literally a couple of feet. He passed right by us.
We were on ESPN a number of different times. We, made friends, or I guess just for, friendly acquaintances with a couple of fans. I think there was one from the Texans, if I remember right. They kind of hung out with us for a little bit. But just kind of a really cool event to go to. And I know we came back for, so I guess was it the first and second round were Saturday? They changed the layout a little bit that time.
I want to say it was first, second, and third was Saturday, and then the rest of it was Sunday.
Okay.
And I think we went to pretty much every round. I'm not sure how late into the seventh we stayed because I knew we had to get going at some point to get back to, at the time, the Mount Pleasant area on Monday. So I remember we kind of had to hit the road, but we caught a lot of picks that weekend. Yeah. So we did see, late into the third day, or, what is now the second, or what at the time was the second day, with some of those, compensatory picks and things like that. But just a really cool thing to take part in, and seeing this when it was just in a theater and maybe not the event that it is now. Although it was a very modern draft and things like that, a lot of things that they do now, were kind of implemented back, during that draft. I remember that they could pick the walkout song and things like that, the players were, coming out for. And honestly, one of the most striking memories that I have is just, I am so thankful the Lions actually did get Matt Stafford, even though, of course, we didn't really win too much with him, because some of the alternatives that were being bandied around and were top picks in that draft were absolute busts. Oh, Aaron Curry, anyone?
Aaron Curry. There was the offensive tackle that was really high.
Andre Smith out of Alabama.
Andre Smith. Yep. That just never really materialized. And, that was Mark Sanchez to the Jets when he got drafted. And that was a big, hey, they were excited at the time.
Yeah, they were.
When that happened, but a lot of fun to take part in. And, I certainly hope that people going to the event this weekend will have the same amount of fun that we had.
And I hope so too. And one thing that I'll take away from that experience, and I'm sure this applies to all draft experiences as well, is just the representation from all the different franchises, the diehard fans from all these organizations all coming together for one particular occasion. And it really was cool seeing guys in just every different type of jersey you could think of, crossing paths and striking up conversations in line and all this. And I remember the fact that we were all in our Lions attire. We drew a lot of jeers from a lot of opposing fans. And then one guy comes up in a Pittsburgh Steelers jersey and he has a Pirates hat on and says, "Hey, don't worry about it, guys. I feel your pain. Yeah, I'm a Steelers fan, but I'm also a Pirates fan, so I know what it's like to have a team that sucks." It was just a lot. It was a lot of fun being around a lot of other teams and being able to strike up conversations. And I hope a lot of that takes place down in Detroit this week.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a great event, and one that I think they've done an awesome job with expanding on. And I just hope everyone stays safe and has a good time with it.
No doubt about it, Phil. Hope you enjoy the draft, and we hope you enjoy the draft as well. That's going to do it for this episode of Kneecaps for Breakfast. We are thrilled that you were able to be along with us and were able to stick around with us as we went a little bit later than usual, but we had a lot of fun on this episode, and the fun will keep going next week when we break down everything that the Lions did and what happened around the NFL as a whole in NFL Draft 2024. For Phil Byrne, I'm Vince Brogar saying good morning, go Lions, forward down the field, over and out.